Well, it is so good to see you. Thank you for being here this weekend, whether you're here at our Kirkland campus, whether you're joining us, of course, in Mill Creek. Can't wait to be back up and see you guys again soon. Of course, those of you joining us online, thank you for being here. You did it. You survived another holiday season. Can you believe it, right? And so now that all that craziness is behind us, things will just sort of gently glide into the future, right? I mean, all is back to normal, smooth, easy, right? Sure, right? In fact, as Stephen just said, we're kicking off this new series today. I want to dive right in with this simple question and put aside even the craziness of the last month. Let me just ask, do you ever feel overwhelmed? Okay, I don't have to spend very much time establishing that, I don't think, because the truth is, almost all of us know that feeling. We know that sensation of having more to do on our list than time to do it. More pressure and responsibility, things beyond what we can handle on our own that just feels crushing at times. Since 2007, the American Psychological Association has released an annual Stress in America survey. And let me tell you, it is some fun reading, friends. I cuddled up with my copy just this last couple of weeks. In fact, it was released this year in October of 2024, just before the election. So it was extra sweet reading this time around. I had to stop, quite frankly, because it was stressing me out. But the bottom line is, what we all know, that more than half of all people in America report at some time in their ongoing life feeling overwhelmed. 1 in 4, according to this survey. 1 in 4 find themselves at times so overwhelmed they struggle to do the basic things of life. This study's been going on for years. You think the numbers are climbing in terms of stress or declining in terms of stress? I don't think anybody wonders. And the sources of stress that people identify are some of the predictable things like money, things like work, like relationships, health issues, family responsibilities. But there keep being these new things that pop up on the list. The rise of artificial intelligence, stressing people out. The spread of fake news, climate concerns. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And it impacts us in different ways. Again, more reading in this lovely little study. Over 75% of people say that their stress level somehow has impacted their physical health, whether it's headaches, whether it's fatigue, whether it's feelings struggling with depression. They talk about how it spills over into their relationships, where the vast majority will admit that because of stress in their life, they are sometimes lose patience or get short with family members. The struggle to make decisions or future plans. I mean, if you weren't stressed before, you stressed now? Am I helping? So against this backdrop of political tension and economic uncertainty and global conflict, all of us still have places to be and jobs to do and bills to pay and kitchens to clean and kids to raise and news to read and yards to mow and dinner to cook and clothes to buy and clothes to wash and clothes to wash and clothes to wash. More clothes to buy because we don't wear the clothes we already have, right? We got homework to finish. We got tuition to pay. We got social media to scroll. We got soul-numbing Netflix series to binge that we can't stop watching, right? There's more and more to do and seemingly less and less time to do it. And it all added together, it's no wonder why so many people feel so overwhelmed. And because of this pace, many of us find ourselves trying to go faster, get better, get stronger, faster, until we're sprinting through life, barely skimming the surface, realizing I don't have time for the things that I wish I had time for. To really sit down and have a meal with my family, to really invest in a friendship that I need or that means a lot to me with a deep conversation or real honest sharing. I mean, who has time to rest or reflect or read or really spend any time exploring or growing our whole spiritual side of our lives? We just don't have time. But the good news is neither does anybody else, right? So it must be okay, right? Maybe this is just the way life is supposed to be, right? Friends, it's not. It's insane, is what it is. And it takes intentionality and it takes thoughtfulness to stop for a minute, get off that treadmill, and just say, does it have to be this way? Is there another way? And what if I told you that the key to escaping this craziness isn't some new technology, it isn't some new productivity technique, but an ancient practice that for millennia has been helping people find sanity and peace and even joy in the middle of chaos? Could it be that the secret isn't to improve your efficiency or to expand your capacity, but to admit and even embrace your own limitations? I'll just lay my cards on the table here, okay? I want to invite you to be part of an experiment for the next 21 days. I want to invite you, whatever your background, whatever your beliefs, whatever your experience, for the next 21 days to experiment with the ancient practice of prayer. Now, I know some of you hear that and you're like, could this be any more predictable, right? Here we are, new year, a pastor talking about prayer. Okay. But let me ask you seriously, have you tried it? What can it hurt, right? Because when it comes to feeling overwhelmed, you've certainly tried lots of other things, haven't you? Maybe you resolved to be more disciplined or vowed to get yourself in better shape physically or financially or decided to watch less news. That's probably a good idea for all of us, right? You've probably tried all kinds of different things to better deal with stress and pressure. What if you tried to pray? And maybe some of you would say, well, I have tried that actually, Wolfgang. It's kind of a sore spot for me because I asked for my marriage to be restored and it fell apart. I asked for healing for my friend and things got worse. It's a huge question. It's one we're actually going to tackle next week, devote a whole week to that difficult subject because it's a question a lot of people wrestle with. But what I want to invite you to, whatever your background, whatever your experience, whatever you're facing, to invite you to be part of this experiment. See what might happen in your life if you sign on for 21 days of praying. Just try it. Because there are lots of people who tell you, who've walked in this experience before, they will tell you it will change your life. The secret is not some fresh new thing that someone just discovered. It's a beautiful thing that people have been enjoying and soaking in for generations. Because you know, this struggle, this issue with being overwhelmed, this is not new. People who lived long before us dealt with this stuff as well. Some of you maybe that were with us last summer, you remember we studied through the life of a man named David. You've probably heard the famous story of David and Goliath, that David. And even though that famous story is one of success and victory, as you study his life, you discover there's all kinds of struggle, all kinds of issues and challenges with rivals and enemies and family problems and mistakes that he made. All of this stuff adds up to a guy who knew what it was like to be overwhelmed. And listen to this beautiful little prayer that he wrote, found in the Old Testament book of Psalms during one of those times. Psalm 61. David cries out, "Hear my cry, O God. Attend to my prayer. From the end of the earth, I will cry to you." And then this key line, "When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you've been a shelter for me, a strong tower from the enemy." I love those images. A rock that is higher than I, a better perspective, something to cling to when everything else is shaking. A shelter, a strong tower, a place of refuge and protection and even peace in the middle of opposition and threat and danger. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to a rock that is higher than I. Or to put it even more simply, this simple little prayer that I've been memorizing and finding myself praying over and over again. Psalm 56, "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you." Psalm 56:3. When I am afraid, when I am stressed, when I feel overwhelmed, I put my trust in you. Why? It's because I get overwhelmed, but he doesn't. I get tired. He does not. I am limited. He is not. And this isn't just true for David or these ancient people. It is true for me. I'll just stand here and admit it. I cannot do it all. As hard as I try. Even in the last moments before I came out here, my pen exploded and turned my hand blue, right? All right? Dumb little stuff. I'm becoming a Smurf, friends, all right? I can't do it all. Stuff happens. Far more important than broken pens. I don't have what it takes to be the father and the husband, the friend, the neighbor, the leader, the pastor that I am called to be. I'll just acknowledge it to you. I don't. And you know what? That's okay. Because I don't have to be. It doesn't all depend on me. Can I tell you how unbelievably freeing that is? To embrace these beautiful two truths that we've talked about so many times before. The two greatest, most important truths in all of life. Number one, there is a God. And number two, you're not him. In prayer, we're admitting there is a God, and I'm not him. I need a power beyond my own. I need something or someone bigger than myself that I can trust. That is the source of sanity and peace that so many of us are craving. So many ways, that's what prayer is about. It's just learning to live in that reality. No matter the circumstances, there is a God and I'm not him. So maybe the secret to dealing with the stress and the pressure that we all deal with isn't about growing our capacity or our confidence in ourselves, but instead growing in our ability to connect with God, to put ourselves and our confidence in him. Well, so how do we do that? Well, just very practically, throughout this year, we have been studying the most famous speech ever given. It is the single most influential set of words ever delivered. It's commonly known as the Sermon on the Mount. We've devoted an entire year to studying this. And we took a little bit of a break for Christmas, but we're returning to it now here in January, and we'll continue through the rest of this year. Digging into these words from Jesus that are recorded in Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7. Some of us are even in the process of memorizing these words, deepening, kind of sinking them deep into our hearts in an even more profound way. You may want to consider checking that out. But it's all about the Jesus way of life, and it addresses nearly every topic that any of us encounter. And of course, it talks very clearly and specifically about prayer. Because if you know anything about Jesus, you know his life was defined by prayer. Routinely, he would step away from the crowds and the expectations and the chaos of his time with so many demands on his attention to spend quiet time with his Father in prayer. It's the center of who he was. And when he stood up in front of that crowd on that famous day, just before he taught the famous prayer that we just heard read at the very beginning of this message, this is what he stood up and said to them about prayer. Matthew 6, starting in verse 5. He said, when you pray, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. He says, truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. Again, I just love how simple and clear Jesus can be. Sometimes people make this so complicated. So many times, Jesus just calls it. There's no mystery here. He says, when you pray, don't make this some kind of show. This isn't about other people. Not a performance to try to impress them. It's not about wowing people. It's about connecting with God. So Jesus says, you want to connect with God? You want to grow in your trust in him? Skip the show. Just keep it real. So instead of making it a show, he says this, verse 6. He says, when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. You set aside a time and a place. Just spend time with God. Nothing fancy, just simple time with him. And not only is prayer not about impressing people, Jesus says, don't even try to impress God in your prayer, he says. Again, verse 7, he continues. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they'll be heard because of their many words. Don't be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you even ask. In the same way that prayer isn't about impressing people, it's certainly not about impressing God either. It's not about wowing God with our promises or our big words. It is a simple, honest, real conversation with him. A prayer like the one that we pointed to earlier from David. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Or those words we had heard just a little bit ago, these famous words many of us know by heart from Matthew 6, verse 9 to 13. When Jesus says, this then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Bring up there, down here, God. Give us today our daily bread. We have needs. We trust you. And forgive us our debts as we've also forgiven our debtors. We screw up and sometimes people hurt us. Teach us about forgiveness. Set us free. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Life is hard, and we need power bigger than our own. Simple, to the point, and we're going to spend a whole week unpacking this powerful prayer later in this series. But what if we just start here? What if we just start with this beautiful reminder that there is a God and I'm not him? That in the middle of all the stress and the chaos of life, we know there is a Father in heaven, intimate and infinite. And he knows, and he cares about your needs, not just the needs of somebody else, the person behind you, your life, your needs. See, something happens when we authentically, honestly connect with God in prayer. Later in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul elaborates on some of these same ideas. He says this in Philippians 4. He says, don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Paul says there's a sort of exchange that takes place. With thanksgiving, we bring our needs, we bring our worries, we bring our requests, the things that may leave us feeling overwhelmed. And he hears us. And he takes them and exchanges them for a peace that can't be explained. Whether the circumstances change or not, a peace that you will not find anywhere else. It's an inside job. That's the offer. That's the invitation. And I just wonder, what if it's true? What if you could experience that? Many of us have discovered it is. And so that's what I want to invite you to experiment with over the next 21 days. Whether you are a seasoned prayer, as I know many of you are, people in this room whose prayer life I admire and I've learned from. Or maybe you're brand new to all this. You're not even sure you buy any of this, but you're at least curious, or a friend brought you. Wherever you are. And you may think, hey, that all sounds great, Wolfgang, but I mean, who wouldn't love a little more peace in their chaotic life? But who has time for this? You just talked about how crazy things are. I mean, I'd like to pray, but who has time for such things? There's too much going on, man. I got to get stuff done. And you've heard it said many times before. I always have to remind myself, anytime I think I don't have time to pray, I have to catch myself and remind myself, I don't have time not to pray. You really don't. Because I'll tell you, I've learned there is nothing more productive than the time that you spend seeking the heart of God, inviting his power, inviting his presence, his strength to be with you. There's nothing more productive than that. Because let's be honest, it's tough out there. And there's often very little we can do about the circumstances that are going on around us. But we have a choice of what's going to happen inside of us. And so in the middle of the tension and the relational stress and the financial stress and the temptation and all the complicated decisions that all of us have to make day in and day out, I don't know about you, I need God's presence. I don't have what it takes, and that's okay. Because he does. I need his power. I need his grace. I don't just need it for a few minutes in prayer. I need it every single moment that I live. It's essential for me. And so as a follower of Jesus, there are times when I have to disconnect from everything that does not last in order to connect to the one who does last. I have to disconnect from everything that is temporary to connect with the one who is eternal. Prayer, it's not just some momentary action. It is that, but it's so much more. When you look at the way Jesus lived, prayer wasn't just something he did from time to time. It was his way of life. He interacted with God in every moment of the day. That's why I love the sort of fresh way that pastor and poet Eugene Peterson kind of paraphrases or rephrases this verse that we were looking at a moment ago in Matthew 6. This is what is known as the Message version. And here's what he writes. Here's what I want you to do, kind of rephrasing what Jesus said. Find a quiet, secluded place so you won't be tempted to role play before God. Just be there as simply and honestly as you can manage. The focus will shift from you to God, and you will begin to sense his grace. So what do? Find a quiet, secluded place. Use the bathroom if no other thing, right? I mean, it's probably the quietest place in our house. Even you got little kids running around, just duck away in there for a little while. Jesus got alone to pray. I'd encourage you, make it a daily priority to get alone, to block out the noise, to eliminate the distractions, to disconnect from this world, to connect to the God of the universe. Now, why do you need to do that? Because, friends, intimacy is never accidental. You never just accidentally become close to God. It doesn't happen that way. There's no relationship in your life that happens that way. There's no way I could be close with my wife, Lori, if we never talked to each other or we never had any time alone. You can't be close to a friend if you never actually talk to each other. It's finding a place where you can pray and be still. And this may seem hard, so here's what we're gonna do, just helping each other with this through these 21 days. A couple of suggestions, a couple of tools that we're gonna invite and challenge all of us together to do over these next 21 days. The first is a tool that I personally have found super helpful. Some of you have even heard me talk about this before. It's a simple little app called Lectio 365. It's a totally free app. Each day it has guided prayers and a little reflection that, can I tell you, I have found so helpful as I'm learning to resist this impulse to be overwhelmed and to build my confidence in him. And so as part of this experiment, we're challenging everyone, whether you're at Mill Creek, you're joining us online, or you're here on Kirkland, wherever you are, to text the word overwhelmed to 97000. You'll get a link to download that app on whatever platform or phone you have, iPhone or like dial-up, whatever it is you use, right? And then you'll get a reminder for the next 21 days to engage with this each morning. Not annoying, not a ton of stuff, just a gentle little reminder to check it out. Free download, and here's how it works. Each of the devotionals is a pre-recorded thing. This is what it looks like. And what I do in the morning when I start with this, I open the app, I push play, I start, and then I push play on the devotional, and then I set my phone down so I'm not tempted to respond to other notifications that might come in or other little, pop-ups or to start scrolling or anything like that. It usually is about 8 to 10 minutes, including some quiet time to reflect and settle yourself. And I want to challenge you to try to do this for the next 21 days. Specifically, each morning, Open the app, you'll discover they actually have a morning devotional, a midday one if you want to do that, as well as an evening one. And the midday thing is relatively new, but I've used the evening one a lot in my life. It's actually how I end almost every day. It's just as we turn the lights out, Lori and I turn this thing on next to our bed, and we just kind of listen to it. Quite frankly, sometimes we fall asleep to it, all right? But it's this beautiful kind of reflection on the day. Anyway, so powerful. I've just found this so helpful. Maybe you will too. What if you tried it for the next 21 days? So text overwhelmed to 97000 for the link and put that on your phone. But we also want to grow in our ability to pray, not just talk about it. And so we're hosting what we're calling prayer labs over the next couple of weeks to experiment with different forms or expressions of prayer. Followers of Jesus have prayed and engaged with God in so many ways over the centuries, and we can learn from their example. Maybe stretch ourselves in some fresh ways. Actually, we're going to finish our time together by doing something like that in just a little bit. It's a great time. It's a great thing, I should say, to grow in our personal, individual prayer lives, but there is something powerful when we come together and pray together. So these 3 Sunday evenings, the first 2 will be focused on some practices or expressions of prayer, and then the last one will be a worship night that we're really excited about. And finally, at the end of this series, the final week of the series, we will be hosting an entire week of prayer on our Kirkland campus. Now, some of you were part of this last year. You remember this. We set up kind of a unique prayer room on our Kirkland campus, just down the sidewalk out here in one of our other rooms. This kind of set-aside space where people came and were able to engage in these kind of guided prayer experiences. Some came by themselves. Some came with family. We had parents with kids, spouses, all over the place. Some life groups came and did this together. Some friend groups came. And you can sign up for an hour time slot and find out about all these things at northshore.church/21 days, okay? All of that's there. You sign up for an hour to be part of that prayer. You go, whoa, wait, an hour? Dude, I can barely pray for 3 minutes. What are you talking about, an hour? Can I tell you, when we did this before, we asked for feedback from people. The single biggest feedback we got from people, even those brand new to prayer, was that an hour was not long enough. They found the moment and the space so sweet that many of them signed up for multiple slots over the course of a week. What if you just tried that? And if you're only there for 10 minutes, go home. But at least try it. See what happens. It'll be open from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., that final week of the series. And you'll hear more about that. You can learn more about that at northshore.church/21 days. This is the invitation. 21 days of prayer. And I believe it can redefine the trajectory of your new year. I deeply believe that. Whatever your background, whatever your experience, whatever it is you're facing, I believe God will meet you in a new way as you just set aside this practice of talking to him. You've tried other things. Why not try this? So here's what I want to do. Kind of finish up our time together now. We're going to open our hearts to what God might want to do. I want to ask the band if they'll go ahead and come out actually right now. In just a moment, they're going to lead us through a prayer. It's a song. But it's called I Make Room in My Heart. It's an expression of just opening ourselves up and saying, God, I want to go deeper. I want to open myself up to what you might have. I'm willing to see what might happen if I make room in my heart for you. And so for you, this is a moment for you to decide, to think, am I in? Am I willing to go on this journey, to be part of this experiment? So what I want to ask you to do is, you can remain seated, that's okay. But I want you, in all seriousness, as we sing this prayer together, don't think of it as a song we're singing. Don't think about the other people around you. Think about this moment between you and God of simply saying, I make room in my heart for you, God. I may not nail it all 21 days, but I'm at least willing to go on this adventure, be part of this experiment, and open up my heart to what you may want to give me. Some beautiful thing that maybe he's been holding on to, longing to put into your life, if you just open yourself up. So you join me. Let's sing this prayer, asking God, offering our hearts. We make room in our heart for you. Let's sing it together, guys.
Then as long as I am able, I will make it yours alone. If my praise can build a throne, and as long as I am breathing, you will be the cornerstone. I make room in my heart. I make room in my heart. I make room in my heart for you. Let the world fade away. Let your spirit invade. I make room in my heart for you. And every idol hit the ground. 'Cause there's only space for Jesus when he clears the temple out. So turn the tables upside down. This is my surrender, only one king to be crowned. I make room in my heart. Yes, I make room in my heart. I make room in my heart for you. Let the world fade away. Let your spirit invade. Oh, I make room in my heart for you. Oh, we're hungry for your presence, Jesus. Yes, we're hungry for your presence. Push back the unbelief. Push back anxiety. Tear down the shame. Yes, Jesus, in Jesus' name. Don't stop until you're done. God, let your kingdom come forever reign. In Jesus' name. Push back the unbelief. Push back anxiety. Tear down the shame. In Jesus' name. Don't stop until you're done. God, let your kingdom come forever reign. In Jesus' name. Be the king of my heart. Be the king of my heart. Be the king of my heart, Jesus. Yes. The first name on my lips. The one reason I live. Be the king of my heart, Jesus. Be the king of my heart. Be the king of my heart. Be the king of my heart, Jesus. The first name on my lips, the one reason I live. Be the king of my heart, Jesus.
And here's what I want to ask you to do. We've intentionally left just a couple of minutes. I mentioned we're going to be doing some of those prayer labs where we'll have some experiences to stretch ourselves and maybe experience prayer in some unique ways. And I want to experiment with that just a little bit together right now. Whether you're here in our Kirkland campus, whether you're in Mill Creek, whether you're watching online, you can do this right wherever you are right now. Kind of in this same posture of prayer, I want to ask you if you just go ahead and close your eyes just to kind of block out any distractions or other things going on. Just going to take a few minutes. There are different ways to describe this. Some people call this beholding prayer. There's all sorts of different ways to describe it. It's about beholding God. It's imagining, looking at him, and him looking at you. And this might be a stretch. It might be kind of unusual. And we're just going to spend a moment to sit in his presence. So first, make yourself sort of comfortable. Just put your feet square on the floor. If you want, you can open your hands up as sort of a symbol of openness and receiving. Just begin taking deep, deep breath. Slow down. Your brain might be going 1,000,000 miles an hour. Just doesn't that feel good? Did you do it again? Recenter your scattered senses on the presence of God. And if you find your mind wandering, you just recenter by taking in that deep breath, just kind of resetting. And with each breath, just be reminded that God is a loving Father. He is a tender, loving parent. Just be reminded of his love for you. Just breathe deep and soak in that for just a moment. Jesus said, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you." Breathe in his love. Now I want to invite you to imagine something. I want you to imagine the deepest parts of who you are. Maybe you picture that in your chest. Maybe you picture that in your heart, wherever it is. Just picture, imagine the deepest parts of you, where all of your deepest longings, your dreams, maybe your regrets, the deepest parts. And I want you to imagine that in that space, on that space, there's a set of double doors. And behind those doors, all those deep things. Things maybe you've never shared with anybody else. Things you dream about, but you're afraid to say out loud. Or whatever it is, the good and bad. Things you're hoping for. Things you're worried about. Maybe grief, or fear, whatever it is. What are those relationships, those situations that are behind that door? You remember Jesus' words and his challenge to just be honest with God. No masks, no pretending. What's in that space? Well, here's what I want you to imagine doing. When you're ready, imagine opening those doors up to God. Letting him see into that deepest part of who you are. Just picture those doors swinging open. Him looking. The good, the bad, what you're proud of. Maybe things you might have shame about. It could be something in the past, something right now, whatever. Just allow God to start looking across all of those things. Just imagine opening yourself up. As he looks at you, I want you to look at him. Set your eyes on his heart of love and compassion and goodness, his tenderness for you. Maybe even give him permission to reveal his love even into those hidden places of your heart. Just imagine him looking at you. And there in that stillness, just sit with him. You looking at him looking at you. Him available to you, you available to him. And then just finish by just thanking God for his grace, for his presence in your life. He already knows all that's behind that door. He's inviting you to come out of hiding, to invite him into the deepest parts. Thank him for his availability, for his love, for even these few moments spent together. So Lord, I thank you for this sweet time. And God, I cannot wait to see what it is you have for so many people in these next 21 days. The peace you'll bring, the healing you'll bring, the freedom you'll bring. I believe you have good things in mind for us, good plans for us, and we trust you. So we open our heart and we receive this song as your reminder of your love and goodness to us. As we sing, receive this song as his words to you.